Grass feeding beef animals, I suppose, in essence, there's a bit of a misnomer in terms of what grass feeding, grain feeding. And the honest answer is that all animals eat grass at some stage of their life, whether they're grain finished or whether they're grass fed. So particularly for us here in Ireland, our agricultural farmers feed grass purely based on our positioning in the globe in terms of our temperate climate, in terms of our space of where people are living in Ireland, that we have a lot of grass in Ireland. So the temperature, the rainfall allows us to grow great grass.
But to manage the grass to grow that amount is a skill in its own, and more particularly the managing the grass so we utilise it as efficiently as possible. So we do have a rotational system. Grass is measured on a weekly basis, so we know what's there today. We also can make predictions, probably 10 days to 2 weeks ahead of ourselves, so we know what's coming down the line. And from that, then we manipulate the grass that we eat, when we eat it, and how much we would conserve or save. We also have to ensure that we eat the grass whenever it's at its most nutritious stage. And this is what gives us the output and gives us the ability to be able to gain weight on the cattle, have enough grass for the cows to produce milk for their calves, and then also to have a quality product to use in the winter time when there's less grass.
In terms of our water use, look around us in Ireland, it rains every day, so we're not desalinating water. We don't have any risks in terms of getting enough water for the animals. So that's the first thing. And a high water consumption is one of the things that, in terms of intensive beef farming, is that you need. You need a lot of water. We don't need that in Ireland.
Here we have a very unique capability in Ireland to grow very high quality grass. In some other countries like Australia, the US and the USA, they tend to not be able to grow the kind of grass that we can here, and so they need to substitute a lot of grain in the animal's diet to produce that marbling. Rather here we can utilise high quality grass to do the same job, and as well as that, we didn't want to go down the route of grain feeding animals. We didn't believe in feeding animals indoors over extended periods of times. It wasn't part of our ethics, and it's not something we wanted to continue with, and which is why we took a fresh approach to what we're doing.
When grass grows, it sequesters carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to grow grass. It's schoolboy science. So the more we can keep grass in the diet, the more we are offsetting the carbon dioxide being produced. So the studies, recent studies, on what we're trying to aim for is that we will be able to sequester as much carbon as the animals are producing. So we believe that we're very close, as is a lot of farms in Ireland. The more we go down the route of using mainly a grass-fed diet, the closer we get, the less inputs we would have from outside as an imported proteins. Well over 95-96% of all feeding going into our animals is grown here on site and is eaten from the field, and so there's no other input or no other imports from anywhere else.
Grass is the building block of muscle in a cow, essentially. So for us in Ireland, grass is on our doorstep. As long as grass is managed in the correct way, it's plentiful in supply, it's very nutritional, and it gives a great flavour and taste to meat. When you look at meat around the world, whether it be grain-fed or whether it be Wagyu product, they have a tendency to taste same. Initially, there's a succulence or a juiciness to them, which people say, oh, the meat is very, very juicy. But in essence, that is fat that you're eating. Whereas when you eat grass-fed beef, you get that succulence and juicy, but it's a more natural juiciness you get. So it's actual muscle structure and water in that muscle that gives you that juiciness and flavour. At Johnstone, we do things differently because number one, we're based in Ireland. Ireland is an agricultural-based country in terms of both of our dairy and our beef production. It's very small scale in terms of our farm size, in terms of our use of resources for those farms, such as our water use. And that's a big thing when you talk about beef production around the world. So when you're using feedlots, both in the US, both in Australia, both in South America, your requirement for water is huge because you're containing animals in a very small space and you need a lot of water now to be able to do that. We don't do that in Ireland. The animals are rotationally grazed, they're free to roam, they're outside 365 days of the year, they're sequestering carbon as they walk. It's the lowest carbon footprint beef production in the world when you think about it. And I think it gets mixed up in the media with large-scale beef producers globally in that their use of what they're doing in terms of their water use, their antibiotic use, their hormone use. We don't do that in Ireland, and as a consequence, we don't do that in Johnstone. So in terms of the natural future sustainability of beef from Ireland, and more importantly Johnstone, I think Ireland is a world leader in sustainability of beef production, where you know that in terms of the scale and size that we're producing beef, does not impact the environment as much as the other large-scale beef producers do globally.